Hi, so I'm going to comment on a great misunderstanding and what some of the problems that we face are uh, in the human experience of the modern day. I think that there's something very important that needs to be addressed, and many people are demanding an account for from, namely atheists. So, one of the and Christians have mostly given up on this talking point because they've found that atheism is um, a bulwark against their personal testimony in and of itself, and have found it fruitless to engage with atheists, which I understand and I completely uh, agree with. So one of the uh, things that comes up is a sort of this personal testimony account of I was personally touched by God. I know, how can you say, with all of this, that there isn't a God, and this sort of, you might even call it an appeal to wonder fallacy, but I don't actually want to necessarily dismiss it as a fallacy because I'm not really concerned with logic directly in this video. By all, I guess I should hedge this by saying, by all manner of debate, atheists are correct. Concede, the Christians must concede. But I don't really think that that's helpful, and I think that that's a part of what Christians are often saying is fine, you win, but this isn't helping anything. What is the, yeah, you're right about logic, but what is it that I'm feeling? What am I sort of dealing with? Uh, what is this, apparent contact with uh, what I perceive to be as God? So, first I'll say, um, I lean towards atheism, but spirituality more than atheism. So I've sort of snaked my way up to a better understanding of all of this. And so, what is it that Christians are talking about when they talk about God and their personal experience, and what is this, and how are we here, and all of these great big kinds of questions. And so I think this all is a misunderstanding, basically. So once upon a time, many Christians were given uh, sort of a sense of um, perhaps premature enlightenment. And I don't want to give too much credit to Christians here, because there's a big misunderstanding here. And what I mean by that is they were confronted with, well, this is it, what amounts to the sensation of consciousness, the direct confrontation with this great big mystery and wonder of consciousness, and how that affects your life, how you perceive everything, and that's this sort of incredible sensation. And then when you bring it up to someone and you're like, hey, this is great, and someone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. How can you justify that? Do you have evidence? It's like, instantly you can, I can just imagine how that must feel. Um, and so here's what I think happened. Um, the problem, or I would say that the great thing about any spiritual practice is that it is diving into consciousness. It's taking that and promoting it. And here's where I think Christianity has gone terribly wrong, along with other religions or spiritual practices that do the same thing. So, in the past, I've talked about that how, you know, there's the physical part of, you know, proving a God exists or something, and then assigning that, you know, oh, this creator exists, and it also hates gay people and how that's absurd. But now I'm coming at it from the sort of the consciousness perspective. And this is the thing, is that consciousness exists. This is what people talk about when they're referring to God, that this field of consciousness that is magnificent. And if you read ancient texts and use actual translations, you realize more or less all words that are referring to God actually persist into the translation of everlasting existence. And so what we're actually talking about, or continued existence, what we're actually talking about is the worship of of continued existence of consciousness. This is the original, that is just ancient original religion. It's this thing that we're all noticing, consciousness. Call it God, call it whatever you want. We're worshiping that because we recognize how valuable it is. The error has become all the baggage, and I don't like the word God. To me, God is a straw man of consciousness, because it's consciousness plus a bunch of baggage, and that's why I don't like Christianity. That's why I don't like these other religions. Because when you say consciousness plus the hatred of gay people and and so on and so forth, you fundamentally poison the well on whether or not that's a good thing. And because here's the thing, from a secular perspective, I suppose you could say, consciousness exists, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the affairs of humanity in particular. Humanity merely is what's the fucking word? It's a station, I guess. It's a station for consciousness, just as much as cows are, and sheep, and other beings that might exist that appear to be higher and are more elevated in a way than humanity. And so when sort of dealing with this issue, you know, where I'm seeing Christians bring this up and say, oh, but what about the wonder of, you know, I've felt God, I know what I believe you about the experience of consciousness and how special this really feels, and I respect that, and I get it. I really understand it now. It took me a long time, because I was very much locked into a rational mindset of a hardcore atheist rationalism, anti-theism, with all the counter-apologetics locked and loaded. And, you know, after just sort of letting that go, you know, I noticed there is this consciousness thing, and it's important, and I'm genuinely, without trying, worshiping the continued existence of it, and respecting it, because it's me, and it's you, and it's everyone, and it's everything. So I get that now. I understand that, but the problem of these religions is that it comes with baggage. And let me tell you, if you're a Christian and you're watching this, this is the reason you get pushback. This is the reason that atheism is so aggressive and hateful and seething and virulent and toxic to you and your testimony and everything. It is because the baggage that you bring along with consciousness. This is why. And all the hatred that your religion brings, and war and turmoil, and all the problems and suppression of science and problems in politics, and don't deny it. This is genuinely baggage coming from your religion. Even when it comes to, I was just watching an interview with Kurt Cobain talking about how he's sort of spearheading, removing some, or trying to sort of inspire people to get rid of these particular laws that were being developed in Portland that were anti-gay laws. And here's the thing: this whole anti-gay madness, that's not the only issue, but it's just one that was really easy to pick on. It's just so easy to pick on, and it came exclusively from the Christian group. They were solely responsible for this. Nobody else around was angry or up in arms or trying to stop gay people from being gay, and all this madness about gay came directly from Christianity. And that's the lowest hanging fruit, so I use it. So but there's more nuance, and there's more nuanced topics about Christianity that it's brought baggage with. And so, because you brought all that, you've done humanity a disservice by not confronting the individual topic where it stands. And that's not your fault, because you've been indoctrinated into believing that all this baggage is attached to consciousness, which it's not. Consciousness is a separate thing, and it has as much to do with your religion as it doesn't, because this is the origin of all religion. It is this worship of continued existence, everlasting existence, and it doesn't have to do with heaven or something like this. I mean, it kind of does, but not in the cloud castle in the sky kind of way. It has to do with the fact that there's consciousness and that it's continuing to exist, and that it appears to always be existing, and this is something worth beholding with high esteem, or worshipping, in a matter of words. And this is where the confusion comes in, when people actually misunderstand all of that and start to take it as fairy tales, but just these weird religious fairy tales that are more or less dancing around the point, but not getting. And this is the problem with Christianity, is that it's not direct. It's got baggage, and as I've said before, it was designed that way because evil has put its hand into your book and written things down. And so the project that I'm openly contemplating here is actually about consciousness and separating that from religion, so that we can have real religion, so that we can have true religion, about understanding the nature of our existence, of our minds, of our emotions, of our spirit, of everything about us, and not having the baggage of hating gay people in politics and other such nonsense that repeatedly pops up. It has nothing to do with purity, women acting pure, which for a long time was a big problem. That's been utterly defeated. If you haven't noticed, I mean, Tinder killed this problem at some point. I remember in the early 90s, I was really young then, but I remember at one time, there's a lot of women who were just rigidly not open to casual sex, and I remember uh, thinking it was well, it explicitly in many cases was because I'm religious. They use this, but now that's not an excuse that comes up anymore. I mean, they'll just be honest, or but that's one of the problems that Christianity has brought, is that it's given refuge to things that it shouldn't. You know, there's just so much refuge to more or less dishonesty and um, evil, and evil, worst of all. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of openly contemplate this topic so that uh, if you're a Christian and you've ever wondered about that and you didn't get an answer, I'm giving it to you now. Uh, thank you.